The arena stretched beneath the light of 3 blazing suns. Taeyang had never seen anything so enormous. The structure seemed less like a stadium and more like a wonder of the galaxy itself. Its towering walls were made from living crystal that shifted colors with every movement of light: blue, gold, crimson, and violet, flowing across the surface like liquid fire. Thousands upon thousands of spectators filled the seats. The sight stole Taeyang's breath. Aliens from every corner of known space watched from the massive tiers above. Some possessed feathered wings folded behind their backs. Others had 4 or 6 powerful arms. A few appeared to be made entirely of living metal, their bodies reflecting the sunlight like polished mirrors. The noise was overwhelming. Thousands of voices, hundreds of languages, one enormous ocean of sound. And standing in the center of it all were 6 humans. Taeyang suddenly felt very small. He adjusted the collar of his formal Earth Defense Force uniform. It had looked impressive back home. Here, it looked painfully ordinary. Around the arena stood warriors clad in glowing battle armor, decorated with rare metals and trophies from distant worlds. Some carried elegant energy weapons. Others wore ceremonial blades that hummed with contained power. Compared to them, the human delegation looked simple, almost fragile. At the front stood Captain Hyun. His posture was perfectly straight, his expression unreadable, as if standing before thousands of alien spectators was just another day at work. Taeyang wished he felt half as confident. Beside him stood Huna. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, but he noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. She was nervous too. That made him feel a little better. At least he wasn't the only one. Captain Hyun glanced back at his team. His voice was quiet, but every human heard it clearly. "Remember why we're here." The group immediately focused on him. "We are not representing ourselves today." His eyes swept across them. "We represent Earth." A brief pause. Every city, every nation, every human being. His gaze hardened. "So stand tall." Taeyang felt his heartbeat steady. The captain was right. This wasn't about 6 soldiers. It was about an entire world. Suddenly, the arena lights brightened. A hush spread through the crowd. The massive central platform began to glow. Then the announcer stepped forward. He was Valerian, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in silver scales that shimmered beneath the sunlight. When he spoke, his voice thundered across the arena. The translation device in Taeyang's ear immediately converted the words. "Warriors from 100 worlds." The crowd erupted. Cheers echoed like rolling thunder. The announcer raised his arms dramatically. "You gather today to honor Princess Lyra on the 25th year of her reign's celebration." Another explosion of applause shook the arena. "Today, the finest champions of the galaxy will demonstrate their strength." The crowd roared. "Their skill," even louder. "Their courage." The crystal walls themselves seemed to vibrate from the noise. Taeyang swallowed. This was far bigger than he had imagined. Slowly, his eyes drifted upward toward the royal viewing platform. The royal box stood high above the arena, carved from brilliant white stone that gleamed beneath the triple suns. And there she was, Princess Lyra. The entire galaxy seemed to revolve around her. She sat upon an elegant throne fashioned from polished crystal and moon-white stone. Silver robes flowed around her like liquid starlight, while a delicate crown rested upon her dark hair. Yet it wasn't her clothing that drew attention. It was her presence. She carried herself with the calm confidence of someone born to command worlds. Thousands watched her. Thousands admired her. Yet her expression remained thoughtful, almost distant, as if she were searching for something. Then, unexpectedly, her eyes moved toward the human delegation. Taeyang froze. For a brief moment, it felt as though the princess was looking directly at him. Not through him. Not past him. At him. The noise of the arena faded. His heart skipped a beat. Then she smiled, only slightly, barely noticeable. But it was enough. Around the arena, most species still saw humans as newcomers, curious outsiders from a dangerous death world. a young race with little experience among the stars. But in that moment, Taeyong had the strange feeling that Princess Lyrae saw something different. And somehow, that feeling made him far more nervous than the thousands of warriors surrounding him. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were silver. She wore robes that seemed to flow like water. She looked bored. The first event was zero-gravity combat. Warriors floated in a large sphere of space, trying to push each other out. Taeyong watched as massive aliens threw each other around like toys. When his turn came, he used his training. He didn't try to overpower anyone. Instead, he used their own force against them, redirecting their attacks. He made it to the middle rounds before a warrior twice his size finally caught him. The crowd barely noticed. Some aliens in the stands laughed when humans competed. Taeyong heard their comments through his translator. Look at the tiny earthlings. Why did we even invite them? They only joined the galaxy 5 years ago. The second event tested weapon skills with energy rifles. Taeyong did better here. Earth soldiers trained hard, and he hit 17 out of 20 targets. It wasn't the best score, but it was respectable. Still, the Valian nobles in the lower seats barely glanced at the scoreboard when his name appeared. Then came the tactical simulation. Warriors entered a virtual reality scenario where they had to rescue hostages from a building. Most warriors charged in with overwhelming force. Taeyong watched and learned from their mistakes. When his turn came, he took his time. He studied the building layout, found the weak points, and created a distraction before going in through an unexpected route. He saved all the hostages with 0 casualties. For the first time, Princess Lyra leaned forward in her seat. The final event was individual combat trials. Warriors faced each other in short matches. Taeyong won his first match against a reptilian warrior by outlasting him. He lost his second match, but fought well. Then came his third match. His opponent was a Krell warrior named Vorak. Vorak was considered a favorite to win the entire tournament. The match started and Vorak dominated. He was faster, stronger, and more experienced. Taeyong kept getting knocked down. He kept getting back up. The crowd started to quiet down. They watched this human refuse to stay down. Then Taeyong heard a cry. On the other side of the arena, Yuna was in her match. Her opponent had used an illegal move and she was on the ground hurt. The alien warrior stood over her, preparing to strike again. Even though the match should have stopped, Taeyong didn't think. He jumped out of his own ring and ran across the arena floor. Vorak shouted after him, confused. Taeyong reached Yuna and put himself between her and her opponent. "The match is over," he said firmly. "She's injured." Officials rushed over. Taeyong's action meant automatic disqualification from his own match. He didn't care. He helped Yuna to her feet and supported her weight. As medics arrived, the crowd fell completely silent. Princess Liara stood up from her throne. She walked to the edge of the royal box and looked down at the arena floor. Everyone watched her. She raised one hand, and her voice carried across the arena without any devices. "Stop the tournament," she said, her silver eyes fixed on Taeyong. "I have seen what I needed to see." She descended from the royal box. Her father, the emperor, looked shocked. The Valyrian nobles whispered urgently to each other. Princess Lyra walked across the arena floor. Her robes left a trail of light behind her. She stopped in front of Taeyong. "What is your name, human?" she asked. "Sergeant Taeyong Kim, Your Highness," he answered, still supporting Yuna. "Sergeant Taeyong Kim," she repeated. She turned to face the crowd, the other warriors, and the Galactic Council representatives in their special box. "This is the human I desire. I will marry him." The arena erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in 100 languages. Taeyong's mind went blank. Yuna stared at him with wide eyes. Captain Hyun looked like he might faint. Princess Lyra smiled slightly. "Do you accept, Sergeant?" Taeyong couldn't find words. He just stared at the princess who had just changed his entire life with one sentence. The 3 suns seemed to shine brighter, and Taeyong knew nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, Taeyong woke up in quarters that were too large and too fancy. He had barely slept. His small room at the human embassy had been replaced with a suite in the palace. Guards stood outside his door, both human and Valian. He wasn't sure if they were protecting him or watching him. His communication device buzzed constantly. Messages from Earth, messages from the military, messages from his family. His little sister Gina had sent 12 messages, each one more excited than the last. His mother had sent one that simply said, Come home safe, my son. There was a knock on the door. Ambassador Minji Cho entered, followed by Captain Hyun. Both looked tired. We need to talk, Minji said. She sat down without waiting for an invitation. Do you understand what happened yesterday? The princess said she wants to marry me, Taeyong said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. The princess announced her choice in front of the entire galaxy. Naji corrected. Every news network in known space is covering this. Half think it's romantic. The other half think it's an insult to the Valyrian throne. Hyun pulled up a holographic display. Images flooded the air. Valiant nobles making angry statements. Human politicians arguing about what this meant. Alien species placing bets on what would happen next. Earth's government is divided, Yan said quietly. Some see this as an opportunity. An alliance with the Valyrian Empire would change everything for us. Others think it's a trap to humiliate humanity. What do you think? Taeyong asked. Hun looked at him for a long moment. I think you need to meet with the princess and find out why she really chose you. That meeting came 2 hours later. Taeyong was escorted through palace corridors that seemed to shift and change. The walls showed images of Valyrian history, thousands of years of conquest and glory. He felt very young and very human. Princess Liara waited in a garden that grew under a dome. The plants were unlike anything on Earth. Some sang soft melodies. Others released bubbles that floated up and popped with gentle sounds. She stood by a fountain still wearing formal robes. You look terrified, she said when she saw him. I am, Taeyong admitted. Your Highness, I don't understand. Why me? Lyra gestured for him to sit on a bench. She sat across from him, her silver eyes studying his face. Tell me, Sergeant, why did you leave your match yesterday? Yuna was hurt. Her opponent wasn't stopping. You gave up your chance at glory to help your friend. It wasn't glory, Taeyong said. It was just a tournament. She's my teammate. Lara smiled. Every other warrior in that arena fought for themselves, for honor, for fame. 4 prizes. You fought for someone else. She leaned forward. Do you know what the Valyrian Empire's greatest weakness is? Taeyang shook his head. We have forgotten how to care about others. We are so powerful, so advanced that we think only of ourselves. We have stagnated. We need change. And change requires someone who thinks differently. She stood and walked to the fountain. I have studied humans since you joined the galactic community. You are weak by our standards. Your technology is primitive. Your lifespans are short. But you have something we lost long ago. What? Taeyong asked. Hope. Cooperation. The refusal to give up even when everything says you should. She turned to face him. That's what I need. That's what the Empire needs. Before Taeyong could respond, the garden doors burst open. The Emperor entered flanked by advisors. He was tall, even for a Valyrian, and his presence filled the space. His daughter bowed, and Taeyong quickly followed. Liara, the Emperor said. His voice was controlled, but Taeyong could hear the anger beneath. This is unacceptable, Father. The law is clear. My choice must be honored. Your choice is a human, a species that has been part of the galaxy for only 5 years. Do you understand what you're asking? The noble families are outraged. The High Council demands an explanation. Then I will give them one, Liara said calmly. Sergeant Kim will undergo the trial of worth. If he succeeds, no one can question my choice. The Emperor's expression darkened. The trial of worth has not been invoked in 3 centuries. It nearly killed the last man who attempted it. Then Sergeant Kim will be properly motivated to succeed. Taeyong stood up. Excuse me, but what is the trial of worth? An advisor stepped forward. His robes marked him as High Chancellor of Rex. He looked at Taeyong like something stuck to his shoe. It is a series of 5 challenges designed to test every aspect of a potential royal consort. Strength, wisdom, courage, diplomacy, survival. He smiled without warmth. If you fail any challenge, the princess must choose another. If you refuse the trial, humanity will be shamed. Taeyong's mind raced. This was a tie. They were giving him impossible tasks, expecting him to fail. When he did, Earth would look weak and foolish. But if he didn't try, the result would be the same. He looked at Liara. She met his eyes and he saw something there. Not manipulation, not political scheming. Genuine hope that he would try. I accept, Taeyong said. The garden fell silent. I'll take the trial of worth, he continued. For Princess Liara and for Earth. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well. The trial begins in 3 days. Use that time to prepare, human. You will need it. As the Emperor and his advisors left, Taiyang sat back down. His hands were shaking. Liara knelt in front of him and took his hands in hers. Her skin was cool to the touch. Thank you, she whispered. I know this is not what you wanted. No, Taiyang agreed. But sometimes we don't get to choose our path. We just have to walk it the best we can. Liara smiled, and for the first time, Taeyang thought, maybe, just maybe, he could do this. The first challenge took Taeyang to the Darkwood Preserve, a forest under a purple sky. The trees were black and twisted, their leaves sharp as knives. Somewhere in this forest lived a void stalker, an apex predator that had killed dozens of hunters over the years. Taeyang's task was simple: track it, capture it alive, and return it to the judges. He had 3 days and basic supplies. No advanced weapons, no communication devices, just a knife, rope, a water purifier, and his training. Captain Han had spent the previous night teaching him everything he knew about tracking. Yuna had helped him prepare traps using materials from Earth. Now, as Taeyang walked into the dark forest, he was alone. The first day, he focused on learning the environment. He noticed how the creatures here moved, what they ate, where they rested. The Void Stalker was supposed to be invisible, able to bend light around itself. But Taeyang knew nothing was truly invisible. Everything left signs. He found claw marks on trees, unusual patterns in the dirt, places where smaller animals avoided. The Void Stalker had a territory, and Taeyang was in it. On the second day, he set his traps, not to catch the creature directly, but to guide it. He used the natural paths, created false trails, and prepared a clearing with a pit covered in branches. Then he waited. The attack came at dawn on the third day. Taeyang felt the air change before he saw anything. The Void Stalker shimmered into view, a creature of muscle and teeth larger than a bear. It leaped at him. Taeyang ran, not away, but along the path he had planned. The creature followed, angry and hungry. When Taeyang reached the clearing, he jumped over the covered pit. The Void Stalker, running too fast to stop, crashed through the branches. The pit wasn't deep enough to hurt it, but it trapped the creature long enough for Taeyang to drop a net he had woven from vines. The Void Stalker thrashed and roared, but it was caught. Taeyang dragged the captured beast back to the judges. They looked surprised to see him alive. The second challenge was different. 2 colony worlds, Marak and Torvin, had been fighting for years. Trade ships were destroyed. Colonies raided. People on both sides died. Taeyang's task was to broker peace. The leaders of both worlds met him with hostility. They didn't want peace. They wanted victory. Taeyang spent days listening to their complaints. Each side blamed the other for starting the conflict. Each side demanded compensation. But as Taeyang dug deeper, he noticed something strange. The raids always seemed to escalate, just when peace talks were starting. Ships were destroyed, but the cargo always vanished. He asked to see financial records. At first, they refused. Taeyang insisted it was part of his investigation. Finally, they agreed. What he found shocked him. 3 Valyrian noble families owned mining companies in both systems. Every time the conflict escalated, these companies profited. They sold weapons to both sides. They bought salvage from destroyed ships at low prices. They had even hired pirates to attack specific targets. Taeyang presented his evidence to both colony leaders. At first, they didn't believe him. Then anger replaced disbelief. They had been manipulated, their people dying so nobles could get richer. The colony leaders agreed to peace. But more importantly, they filed charges against the noble families. The scandal reached the Valyrian court, making Taeyang enemies among the powerful. The third challenge tested his mind. Taeyang stood before the Council of Scholars, the greatest minds in the empire. They asked him questions about physics, history, and philosophy. Taeyang failed most of the technical questions. He didn't know advanced quantum mechanics. He couldn't recite the history of civilizations that existed before Earth had written language. But when they asked him about ethics, about what made a just society, about how to lead people, Taeyang spoke from his heart. He talked about human history, the mistakes made, and the lessons learned. He spoke about soldiers who sacrificed for others, about communities that rebuilt after disasters, about the value of every life. One old scholar, her skin covered in luminous patterns, listened carefully. Your people are young, she said. You have barely reached the stars. What wisdom can you offer civilizations millions of years old? Taiyang thought about his answer. Maybe that's exactly why you should listen. We remember what it's like to struggle. We know what it means to be weak and have to survive anyway. Ancient wisdom is valuable, but sometimes you need fresh eyes to see old problems. The scholars debated for hours. In the end, they declared he had passed, not because of what he knew, but because of how he thought between the challenges. Taiyang spent time with Lara. She showed him the palace, told him stories of her people, and listened to his stories about Earth. She asked about rain, something Valeria didn't have. She wanted to know about oceans and seasons and music. Do you regret choosing me? Taiyang asked one evening as they walked through the gardens. Lara stopped and looked at him. Every day I am more certain I chose correctly. You see past the obvious. You find solutions where others see only problems. That's what makes you special. I'm just doing what anyone would do. No, Liara said softly. You're doing what humans do, and that's exactly what the galaxy needs to see. 2 challenges remained, but Taiyang felt something changing. The Valyrian people who had mocked humans were now watching with interest. Some still wanted him to fail, but others began to wonder if this human might actually succeed. In the shadows, High Chancellor Rex watched the broadcasts with growing anger. The human was supposed to have failed by now. The challenges were designed to be impossible. Yet Taiyang kept finding ways to win. Rex called a meeting with other nobles who had lost money from Taiyang's peace settlement. They gathered in a private chamber, faces hidden by shadows. The human must not complete the trial, Rick said. The next challenge is survival in the Crimson Wastes. Make sure he does not survive. The nobles agreed. They would not let a primitive human embarrass them. They would not let Princess Lyra change the empire with her radical ideas. If the trial didn't kill Taiyang, they would make sure something else did. Taiyang didn't know about the conspiracy. He prepared for the 4th challenge. Studying maps of the Crimson Waste and checking his supplies, he felt confident. 3 challenges done, 2 to go. He had no idea that the next challenge wouldn't just test his survival skills, it would test whether he could survive at all. The Crimson Wastes lived up to their name. Red sand stretched to the horizon under a burning sun. The heat was intense, even through Taiyang's protective suit. He checked his supplies one last time before the transport left. Water for 7 days, food rations, a basic shelter kit, emergency beacon for life-threatening situations only, because using it meant automatic failure. The transport lifted off, leaving him alone in the desert. Taiyang didn't know that his water containers had been punctured. He didn't know that his food had been contaminated. He didn't know that 3 teams of assassins were tracking him. He walked for hours looking for shelter. The official challenge was simple: survive 7 days in the Crimson Wastes. Many considered it the easiest of the 5 challenges. The wastes were harsh but predictable. Stay in shade during the day. Walk at night. Conserve water. On the 2nd day, Taiyang opened his first water container. It was empty. He checked the others. All leaked. The water long gone into the sand. His heart sank. Without water, he had maybe 2 days. He forced himself to think. Panic would kill him faster than thirst. He remembered his training. Water could be found if you knew where to look. He spent hours digging in low spots, looking for moisture. He found some, barely enough to wet his lips. It would have to be enough. That night, the first assassins came. They wore stealth suits that matched the darkness. They carried weapons that made no sound. Taiyang only survived because he had set up his camp as a decoy and slept 50 meters away behind a rock formation. He watched through his scope as they destroyed his empty tent. Now he knew this wasn't just a survival challenge anymore. Someone wanted him dead. Back on Earth, Gina watched the official broadcast with growing concern. She was a data analyst, trained to spot patterns. Something was wrong with her brother's challenge. The cameras would glitch at odd times. Supply drops that were supposed to happen didn't. She tried calling the embassy but was told everything was normal. At the Valyrian palace, Yuna and Captain Hun had noticed the same things. They brought their concerns to Ambassador Minji. "We can't prove anything," Minji said, but her expression was troubled. "If we accuse the Valyrians of cheating without evidence, it could start a diplomatic incident. If we do nothing, Taiyang dies," Yuna said. Hun paced the room. "We need someone on the inside. Someone who can get into the Wastes without being detected." "I know a person," said a voice from the doorway. Mino stood there, an engineer who had worked with Taeyang before. I can modify a supply drone. Make it look like it's for the official challenge. Get close enough to help. That's illegal. Mino stood there. Mino stood there. Mino replied. In the Crimson Wastes, Taeyang's situation grew worse. He found a small cave that offered shelter from the sun, but his food made him sick. He realized it had been poisoned, not enough to kill quickly, but enough to weaken him. His body ached. He threw up what little water he had found. On the fourth day, he saw the second assassin team. They rode hovercrafts across the sand, hunting him with thermal scanners. Taeyang used the cave system to hide, crawling through narrow passages that the hovercrafts couldn't follow. He found water in the caves dripping from strange crystals. It tasted metallic, but it was clean. He drank carefully, letting his body adjust. The broadcast showed none of this. The official cameras showed Taeyang's decoy camp, making it look like he was resting normally. The galaxy watched, thinking everything was fine. But Princess Liara knew something was wrong. She knew the Crimson Wastes. She knew that someone as smart as Taeyang should be checking in at the monitoring stations. He hadn't visited a single one. She demanded to see the full surveillance data. High Chancellor Vex denied her request. The challenge must be completed without interference. Your Highness, you know the rules. Liara suspected Vex was involved but had no proof. She was effectively trapped in the palace. Her own father had ordered her not to interfere with the trial. Her handmaiden, Nari, watched and listened. Nari had served Liara since childhood. She was loyal, and she was clever. When the nobles thought she was invisible, she paid attention to their conversations. On the fifth day in the wastes, Taeyang was barely conscious. The poison, dehydration, and heat had taken their toll. He lay in the cave wondering if he should use the emergency beacon. It would mean failure, but at least he would live. Then he heard a sound, a drone flying low. He prepared to hide, thinking it was another attack. But the drone landed near him and opened its cargo bay. Inside was water, real food, and medical supplies. There was also a note from friends. Hold on. Taeyang drank the water slowly. He ate small amounts of food. The medical kit had something for the poison. Within hours, he felt stronger. Whoever sent the drone had saved his life. That night, the third assassin team came. They were the best professionals who had killed before. They found his cave. They came in with weapons ready, but Taeyang was ready too. The cave had multiple passages. He had prepared traps using materials from the environment, sharp crystals positioned to fall, narrow passages where larger enemies couldn't follow. He used every trick he knew. One assassin fell to a trap. Another got stuck in a passage. The third chased Taeyang deeper into the caves until they reached an underground lake. The assassin had better weapons, better armor, but Taeyang had desperation and knowledge of the terrain. The fight was brutal. Taeyang was injured, a deep cut across his arm, but he survived. The assassin didn't. Minho reached the wastes on the sixth day. He found Taeyang limping across the sand, heading toward the extraction point. Taeyang was bloody, exhausted, but alive. You're not supposed to be here, Taeyang said when he saw him. Neither are the people trying to kill you, Minho replied. He helped Taeyang walk. Come on. One more day and you pass the challenge. They made it to the extraction point at dawn on the seventh day. The official transport arrived to pick up Taeyang. Cameras recorded him climbing aboard. He had survived the Crimson Wastes. But as the transport headed back to the capital, High Chancellor Vex was already preparing his next move. He had recordings of the drone delivery. He had evidence that Taeyang received outside help at the palace. Rex presented his case before the Emperor and the High Council. Taeyang Kim received assistance during the trial. This violates the sacred rules. He must be disqualified. The Emperor looked grave. If this is true, the trial is void. It's not the full truth, a voice said. Princess Liara entered the chamber with Nari beside her. And I can prove it. The throne room fell silent as Princess Liara walked to the center. She wore formal robes and her face was calm, but Taeyang could see the anger in her silver eyes. Nari followed close behind, carrying a data device. High Chancellor Vex claims that Sergeant Kim cheated, Lara said, her voice carrying through the chamber, but he fails to mention why outside help was necessary. Your Highness, you were forbidden from interfering with the trial. The Emperor said sternly, I did not interfere, Father. I investigated. She gestured to Nari, who activated the data device. Holographic images filled the air. 3 days ago, I noticed irregularities in the challenge broadcasts. I asked to see the full surveillance data. I was denied. So, Nari, loyal and clever Nari, found another way. The images showed Taeyong's sabotaged supplies. They showed assassins entering the wastes. They showed communications between the assassin teams and someone in the palace. This is fabricated, Rex declared. The princess is desperate to save her chosen consort. Is it? Liara turned to face him directly. Nari showed them the communications logs. More holograms appeared. Messages sent from Rex's private terminal. Payments made to mercenary groups. A complete paper trail of conspiracy. The nobles in the chamber began whispering. Some looked shocked. Others looked guilty. You hired assassins to murder a man undergoing a sacred trial, Liara said. Her voice shook with controlled fury. You sabotaged his supplies. You violated every law our empire holds dear. All because you could not accept that a human might be worthy. Rex's calm mask cracked. He is not worthy. None of them are. Humans are barely better than animals. You shame yourself in this empire with this match. I shame nothing, Liara shot back. You shame us. You shame every principle we claim to value. The Emperor stood. His face was dark with anger. I, Chancellor Varex. You will surrender your seal of office and submit to investigation. No, Fick said. Around the room, several nobles stood. Guards loyal to them moved toward the exits, blocking them. I will not let this empire fall into chaos, because a foolish princess wants to play with her pet human. Taeyang, who had been standing quietly with the other humans, suddenly understood. This wasn't just about him. This was a coup. You dare? The Emperor's voice boomed. I dare to save the Empire, Rex replied. Energy weapons appeared in the hands of his supporters. You have grown weak, Emperor! You allow lesser species into our territory. You let your daughter make a mockery of our traditions. Under my guidance, the Empire will remember its strength. Alarms blared. Loyal guards rushed to protect the royal family, but they were outnumbered. Rex had been planning this for a long time. Taeyang moved without thinking. He grabbed Liara and pulled her behind a pillar as energy blast filled the air. Captain Hun and Yuna did the same for the Emperor. The throne room became a war zone. We need to get you out, Taeyang told Liara. I will not abandon my father, she said firmly. The Emperor and his loyal guards were pinned down near the throne. Rex's forces advanced methodical and professional. They had the numbers in the position. Taeyang assessed the situation quickly. The rebel forces expected a traditional defense. They expected the guards to hold the throne room. They expected political maneuvering and negotiation. They didn't expect humans. Taeyang found Captain Hun. Sir, we need to use squad tactics. Hit them from unexpected angles. Hurion nodded. He had already thought the same thing. He signaled to the other human soldiers present. 5 of them, including Yuna and Minho. Not many, but enough. The Valyrians fight like they're in an arena, Hyun said quietly. Front-to-front honor combat. We don't. They split up. Yuna used the chamber's architecture to get above the rebels, taking out their sniper positions. Minho hacked into the palace systems, causing lights to flicker and doors to lock at crucial moments. Taeyang and 2 others moved through the servant passages, appearing where the rebels didn't expect. It was chaos tactics, confusion. The rebels had superior numbers and weapons, but the humans were faster, more creative, and more used to fighting as a unit. Princess Liara watched in amazement. Then she grabbed an energy weapon from a fallen guard. If humans can fight for my empire, so can I. She joined the battle. She wasn't trained like soldiers, but she was brave and angry. Other loyal Valyrians saw their princess fighting and found their courage. The momentum shifted. Rex realized his carefully planned coup was falling apart. He ran for the exit, but Taeyang intercepted him. They fought hand to hand. Rex was stronger, his Valyrian physiology giving him natural advantages. But Taeyang had spent days surviving assassination attempts. He was tired, injured, but determined. When Rex raised his weapon to shoot, Liara hit him from the side. They both went down. Taeyang kicked the weapon away. It's over, he said. The fighting stopped. Rex's supporters saw their leader captured and surrendered. The throne room filled with more loyal guards. The coup had lasted less than 20 minutes. The Emperor approached Taeyang and Liara. Both were breathing hard. You saved my life, he said to Taeyang. You and your fellow humans. We were just doing what was right, Your Majesty, Taeyang replied. The emperor looked at his daughter. Perhaps I have been too focused on tradition. You chose this human because you saw something in him. Today, I see it too. He turned to address the entire chamber. Tiang Kim has passed the trial of worth. He defended the throne. He showed courage, wisdom, and honor. But one challenge remains by ancient law. The challenge of combat. Taeyang's heart sank. He was exhausted. His arm was still injured from the wastes. He had just fought through a coup attempt. And now he had to face one more trial. The trial demands that the chosen one face a warrior in single combat. The emperor continued. The challenger is chosen by the opposition. One of the captured nobles spoke up. Then we choose Krell, the Unbroken. Whispers filled the chamber. Krell was a legend, a warrior who had never lost a fight. He had trained for 300 years. Fighting him wasn't a test. It was an execution. Taeyang looked at Liara. She looked back at him with worry in her eyes. When? Taeyang asked. Tomorrow at dawn, the emperor said. In the sacred ring, the galaxy will watch. As guards led the prisoners away, Taeyang sat down heavily. His body hurt everywhere. Yuna sat beside him. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. You've already proven yourself. If I don't, it all meant nothing, Taeyang replied. The coup, the assassination attempts, everything. They'll say I was too weak to finish. Earth will look weak. Captain Hyan approached. Then we train. We have one night to prepare you for the fight of your life. Taeyang nodded. One more challenge, the hardest one yet. Across the city in the warrior's temple, Krell the Unbroken, prepared for battle. Dawn came too quickly. Taeyang had barely slept. His body was covered in bandages. Medical technology had healed the worst of his injuries, but he was still weak. Captain Hun had spent the night teaching him everything he could about Valyrian combat styles, but it wasn't enough. It could never be enough. The sacred ring was older than human civilization. It was carved from a single piece of white stone, surrounded by seats for thousands of witnesses. Every seat was filled. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to watch. Every screen in the galaxy was tuned to this moment. Taeyang stood in the preparation chamber, wearing simple combat clothing. No armor, no weapons except his hands and feet. Those were the rules Liara came to see him before the fight. She looked like she hadn't slept either. You don't have to do this, she said the same words Yuna had spoken. We can find another way. There is no other way, Taeyang replied. If I walk away now, everything I've done means nothing. If you die, everything we've done means nothing. Her voice cracked slightly. Taeyang took her hands. They were cold, trembling slightly. I'm not planning to die. I'm planning to show everyone what humans are. What are humans? She asked. Stubborn, he said with a small smile. Impossibly ridiculously stubborn. The bells rang. It was time. The walk to the ring felt endless. Taeyang emerged into bright sunlight. The crowd roared a sound like thunder. He looked up at the seats and saw humans among the aliens. Ambassador Minji, her face tight with worry. Yuna and Minho standing together. And on a screen feed, his sister Gina and his mother, watching from Earth billions of miles away. On the opposite side of the ring, Krell the Unbroken entered. He was massive, even for a Valyrian. His skin had scars from centuries of battle. His eyes were cold and evaluating. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. The crowd's roar grew louder. Krell was a legend. Fighting him was an honor, even if it ended in death. The Emperor stood in the royal box. This combat will continue until one warrior yields, falls unconscious, or dies. There is no time limit, no interference begin. A gong sounded. Krell moved first, faster than something his size should move. Taeyang barely dodged. He felt the rush of air as Krell's fist missed his head by inches. The force of the mist blow created a small crater in the stone floor. Taeyang countered with quick strikes, targeting vulnerable points. Krell didn't even flinch. It was like hitting a mountain. The pattern continued. Krell attacked with devastating power. Taeyang dodged, blocked, tried to counter. Nothing worked. Krell was too strong, too experienced, too good. 10 minutes in, Krell landed his first solid hit. Taeyang flew backwards, hitting the ground hard. His ribs felt cracked. He forced himself to stand. The crowd was silent now. They were watching an execution. 20 minutes in, Taeyang was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His left arm hung useless. Krell had barely broken a sweat. Yield, Krell said, not Crowe, but simply. You have fought well. There is no shame in yielding to a superior opponent. No, Taeyang said. He could barely breathe. His vision was blurry, but he stood up again. 30 minutes. Taeyang changed tactics. He couldn't win with power, so he focused on survival. He dodged more, attacked less. He was learning Krell's patterns, looking for any weakness. 40 minutes. Taeyang fell again. This time, it took him longer to get up. His body was screaming at him to stay down, to give up. He thought of his mother's words, "Come home safe, my son." He thought of Gina watching from Earth, believing in him. He thought of Yuna, who had stood by him. He thought of Liara, who had chosen him when she could have chosen anyone. He stood up 1 hour. The crowd wasn't silent anymore. Some were cheering, not for Krell's dominance, but for Taeyang's refusal to quit. They had never seen anything like this. In Valyrian culture, warriors yielded when clearly beaten. To continue was foolish, but humans were foolish sometimes. Beautifully impossibly foolish. Krell's expression changed. Frustration appeared for the first time. He was the greatest warrior in the Empire. He should have ended this in minutes. Yet, this small, weak human kept standing up. 90 minutes. Taeyang couldn't feel his legs anymore. He moved on instinct and willpower alone. He had stopped attacking. He was just surviving. Just standing. Just refusing to give up. Krell hit him again. Taeyang fell. The crowd held its breath. This had to be the end. No one could take this much punishment. Taeyang's hand twitched. Then his arm moved. Then slowly, impossibly, he pushed himself up to his knees, to his feet. Blood ran down his face. His eyes were swollen, almost shut, but he raised his hands in a fighting stance. "Why?" Krell asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "Why do you continue? You cannot win. You will die if this continues." Because Taeyang said, his voice barely a whisper, but carrying in the silent arena, "Humans don't quit. We don't know how." Something changed in Krell's eyes. He lowered his hands. He took a step back. Then Krell the Unbroken did something he had never done in 3 centuries of combat. He knelt. The arena erupted in shock. Aliens shouted in confusion. The judges looked at each other uncertain. "I yield," Krell said clearly. He bowed his head to Taeyang. "I cannot break his will. I have strength, skill, and experience. But this human has something I have never encountered. He has the refusal to accept defeat. He has shown me that there are different kinds of strength." Krell stood and raised Taeyang's hand. "He has earned my respect. He has passed the trial." The crowd exploded. Some cheered, some argued, some sat in stunned silence. The Emperor stood. "The trial of worth is complete. Taeyang Kim has proven himself worthy through 5 challenges. The ancient law is satisfied." Taeyang barely heard it. His legs finally gave out and he collapsed. Medical teams rushed to him. Lara was there holding his hand as they carried him away. "You did it," she whispered. "You stubborn, impossible human. You did it." As consciousness faded, Taeyang heard the crowd still cheering. He had survived against all odds, against impossible challenges, against assassins and warriors and tradition. He had survived. And in surviving, he had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. In the warrior's temple that night, Krell sat in meditation. He had fought for 300 years. He had never yielded. Yet today, facing a human who should have been easy to defeat, he had learned something new. Perhaps the galaxy had more to learn from humans than anyone had expected. Perhaps strength wasn't just about power. Perhaps it was about the refusal to give up no matter what. 6 months later, Taeyang stood on a balcony overlooking the Valyrian capital. The city glowed with lights from 1,000 different technologies. Ships came and went from the spaceport, carrying people from all across the galaxy. Today, they were all coming for one reason: his wedding. The injuries had taken weeks to heal, even with advanced Valyrian medicine. Taeyang had spent that time learning about his new role. He wasn't just marrying a princess. He was becoming part of a political system that had existed for millennia. It was overwhelming, but he wasn't alone. Earth had sent advisors. Ambassador Mi had stayed to help guide him, and Liara was always there, patient and understanding. "Are you nervous?" Yuna asked. She stood beside him on the balcony, wearing a formal dress uniform. She had been promoted to lieutenant after her role in stopping the coup. Captain Hun was now Major Hun, leading Earth's expanded military presence in Valyrian space. "Terrified," Taeyang admitted. 100 worlds are watching. What if I mess up the ceremony? Then you mess up, Yuna said with a smile. That's human. That's what they like about you. The past 6 months had changed everything. The footage of Taeyang's refusal to quit against Krell had spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were seen as survivors, as people who didn't give up. Trade agreements followed. Cultural exchanges. Technology sharing. Earth was still young in galactic terms, but it was no longer ignored. Not everyone was happy. Some Valyrian nobles still grumbled about the match. Some alien species still looked down on humanity. But change had started, and it couldn't be stopped. A knock on the door. Mino entered, wearing formal robes that mixed Earth and Valyrian styles. He had been appointed as the official liaison between human and Valyrian engineering teams. The technology exchange was his project. Now it's time, he said. Your mother and sister just arrived. Taeyang's heart jumped. He hadn't seen them in person since before the tournament. Communications across light years were expensive and limited. He rushed to the landing platform. Gina ran to him first, throwing her arms around him. You look terrible, she said, but she was crying happy tears. I mean, you look great, but also terrible, because I was so scared you would die. His mother walked more slowly. She was smaller than he remembered, grayer. She took his face in her hands and studied him carefully. You have grown, she said simply. Not just older, grown. I had good teachers, Taeyang replied. They spent the next hour talking, catching up on 6 months of separation. Gina told him about the changes on Earth. Humans walked with more confidence now. Young people talked about joining the space program, about seeing other worlds, about being part of something bigger. You did that, Gina said. You made us proud to be human. Evening came. The ceremony would start at sunset. A compromise between human and Valian traditions. Taeyang dressed in formal robes that combined both cultures. His hand shook as he fastened the clasps. Captain Hun, now Major Hyan, served as his best man. They stood together as the guests arrived. Representatives from Earth's government, aliens from dozens of species. Even Krell came dressed in ceremonial armor. The warrior approached Taeyang before the ceremony. I have a request, Krell said. I wish to learn from you how humans train their warriors, how they teach this persistence. I'm not sure I can teach that, Taeyang said. It's just part of who we are. Then teach me to understand, Krell replied. I have trained warriors for centuries. Perhaps it is time I learned something new, Taeyang agreed. It was the start of something unprecedented. A warrior exchange program between Earth and Valyria. The ceremony began as the sun set. The sky turned colors that Earth never saw, purples and oranges mixing with green. Princess Lyra walked down an aisle lined with flowers from both worlds. She wore robes of silver that matched her eyes with small blue flowers from Earth woven into her hair. They stood before the Emperor and an Earth minister. The ceremony mixed traditions, Valyrian vows of partnership and human vows of love. Promises spoken in both languages. Rings exchanged. A human tradition that the Valyrians found charming. When it came time for the kiss, the crowd from Earth cheered. The Valyrians, who didn't have this tradition, watched with interest. Then some of them started cheering too. The reception filled the palace. Music from Earth mixed with Valyrian harmonics. Food from both worlds was served. Aliens who had never tried human cuisine discovered chocolate and coffee. Humans tasted things they had no words for. Ambassador Mi approached Taeyang during the reception. You've done something remarkable, she said. Earth's position in the galaxy has completely changed. We're negotiating full alliance status with the Valyrian Empire. Trade routes are opening. This marriage is more than personal. It's historic. I just wanted to help my friend, Taeyang said, thinking back to when he had left his match to protect Yuna. And that's exactly why it worked, Mi replied. You never tried to be a hero. You just tried to do the right thing. As the celebration continued, Taeyang found himself on the balcony again. Liara joined him, and they watched the city together. Do you regret choosing me? Taeyang asked. It was a question he had asked before, but this time the context was different. The trial was over. The marriage was done. The choice was permanent. Liara was quiet for a moment. Every day since I chose you, I have watched you change the galaxy. You showed the Valyrian Empire that we had become arrogant. You showed other species that humans are worthy of respect. You showed me that choosing with your heart, not your head, can be the wisest choice of all. She took his hand. I chose you because I saw potential. What I didn't see was just how much you would change everything. Below them, the celebration continued. Humans and aliens mingling. Different cultures learning from each other. It wasn't perfect. There would still be conflicts, misunderstandings, and prejudices. But it was a start. Yuna and Minho were dancing together, laughing at their own awkwardness. Major Hun was in deep conversation with a Valyrian general, probably talking about military tactics. Yuna was showing a group of young Valyrians pictures of Earth on her datapad. Krell stood with a group of warriors demonstrating a combat move. But unlike before, he was asking questions, learning, not just teaching. What happens now? Taeyang asked. Now we live, Lara said. We lead. We help the Empire change. We raise children who will grow up thinking cooperation between species is normal. We build something new. No pressure, Taeyang joked. Liara laughed. It was a sound he had come to love. Light and free. You defeated assassins, survived the Crimson Wastes, and refused to quit against the greatest warrior in the Empire. I think you can handle marriage and politics. The marriage part I'm confident about, Taeyang said. The politics, not so much. You'll learn, and I'll be there to help. That's what partners do. As the night grew deeper, fireworks exploded in the sky. It was a human tradition that the Valyrians had embraced enthusiastically. Colors burst across the darkness, reflecting off the crystal buildings. Taeyang thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a simple soldier to the husband of a princess. From being mocked as a weak human to being respected across the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but humans specialized in impossible things. The galaxy was vast, full of species who were older, stronger, and more advanced than humanity. But humans had something special. They had the refusal to give up. They had the ability to adapt. They had compassion, even in competition. And now, for the first time, the galaxy was starting to understand that. Thank you, Taeyang said to Liara. For what? For choosing me. For seeing something in me I didn't see in myself. For giving me the chance to show the galaxy what humans can be. No, Liara said, pulling him close. Thank you for accepting. Thank you for not running away when any sane person would have. Thank you for being exactly who you are. The fireworks continued. The celebration went on. And on a balcony overlooking a city on a world far from Earth, a human and a Valyrian princess stood together, knowing that they had changed the galaxy forever. The human era had begun, not with conquest or domination, but with one man who refused to give up, who helped a friend, who treated everyone with respect, who showed that sometimes the greatest strength is the simple refusal to quit. And as the three suns began to rise, casting new light on a new day, Taeyang knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. There would be those who resisted change. But together, humans and their new allies would face whatever came. After all, humans didn't quit. They never had, and they never would.